They came expecting surrender. They thought we would kneel, that our worlds would fall without a fight. They had conquered 1,000 species before us. Why would humanity be any different? But they forgot something. We don't break. We don't bow. And when the first wave landed, they didn't find a defeated people. They found hell waiting for them. The arrival. A galaxy under siege. The day the sky turned to fire. They came without warning. Not a declaration. Not a message. Just shadows blotting out the sun as the first wave of warships entered orbit. Humanity had known war before, but never like this. The Zayrath Dominion, the single most feared empire in the known galaxy, had arrived. And their purpose was clear: to claim Earth, to wipe away resistance, to make humanity just another conquered species. The broadcast of surrender. Within hours, every human screen flickered to life. A towering Zayrath warlord stood against the backdrop of a burning world, one of the outer colonies already lost. His voice boomed across every device, every signal. We are the Zayrath Dominion. You are now part of the Eternal Empire. His tone was casual, absolute, as if Earth was already theirs. Your world belongs to us. Your people will submit. Your leaders will kneel. There is no alternative. The silence that followed was deafening. Not a threat, not a challenge, just certainty. To the Zayrath, the war was already over. They expected humanity to break. They expected submission. They expected us to surrender. They were wrong. The first strike. As the message ended, the skies above Earth ignited. Columns of fire rained down from orbit. Military bases, communication hubs, defenses obliterated in minutes. The Zayrath moved with precision, striking before humanity could react. The first fleet of assault carriers descended through the atmosphere, deploying thousands of troops into major cities. Earth's defenses scrambled. Too slow, too late. The first battle for humanity's homeworld had begun, and the galaxy watched in silence. The fall of the first line. The first wave of resistance was crushed. Earth's orbital fleets? Destroyed within hours. Military installations? Leveled in orbital bombardments. Cities? Overrun. The Zayrath were unstoppable. They had conquered 1,000 worlds before Earth. To them, humanity was just another step in their expansion. A primitive species barely out of their own solar system. A species that should have surrendered. But humanity had never been good at surrendering. The response, a message of defiance. Across the globe, as cities burned, as defenses fell, one signal was broadcast back into the void. A message sent to the Zayrath High Command. A single reply to their demand for surrender. It was short. It was simple. Come and take it. And for the first time in their history, the Zayrath hesitated, because they had never faced something like humanity before. They had expected fear. They had expected submission. What they found instead was resistance. And this war? This war was only just beginning. The first blow, the fall of Mars. The second front, Mars under siege. While Earth burned, Mars became the next target. Humanity's first off-world colony. A symbol of resilience. A testament to survival in the harshest conditions. And to the Zayrath, just another world to conquer. Their fleet arrived hours after the first strike on Earth. A wall of warships dropped into Martian orbit, darkening the red sky. The colony's defenses activated immediately. Martian orbital guns fired first. Missiles tore through the air, striking the invaders' warships. For a moment, it looked like Mars could hold. For a moment, it looked like humanity had a chance. Then, the real attack began. The orbital barrage, nowhere to hide. The Zayrath did not waste time. They did not fight like humans. They didn't care about taking prisoners. They weren't interested in territory. They wanted one thing: absolute domination. Their warships shifted position, targeting the surface. And then, hell rained down. The bombardment. The first plasma strike shattered Olympus Mons, turning the tallest mountain in the solar system into dust. The second ripped through Valles Marineris, turning the great Martian canyon into a burning chasm. The colony's shields held for 20 minutes. Then they collapsed. The Zayrath ships descended in full force. Cities crumbled beneath the firestorm. Entire outposts were wiped out. Tens of thousands died within the first hour. The Martian defense force fought back, desperately, ferociously. But they were outnumbered, outgunned, and soon overrun. The last stand at New Cydonia. The survivors retreated to the final stronghold, New Cydonia, a fortress city buried deep beneath the Martian surface. Here, the last of Mars' defenders dug in. Soldiers, engineers, civilians who refused to run. They all stood together, waiting for the final battle. The Zayrath landed in force, waves of soldiers and war machines, expecting another easy victory. But they had made a mistake. They thought humanity would break. Instead, they found a nightmare waiting for them. The Martian resistance strikes back. The first Zayrath assault was met with brutal resistance. Martian soldiers fought with everything they had. Rockets, EMP charges, plasma cutters meant for mining, now turned into weapons of war. They lured the Zayrath into underground tunnels, then collapsed them. The invaders screamed as they were buried alive. But the Zayrath kept coming, wave after wave. And slowly, the humans were pushed back, one block at a time, one corridor at a time, until there was nowhere left to run. The end of Mars, or its beginning. The battle raged for 3 days. Then the last barricade fell. The Zayrath forces marched into the ruins of New Cydonia, expecting a handful of survivors, expecting begging. Instead, they found one last surprise. Deep in the tunnels, hidden beneath the rock, the last of the Martian defenders activated the final failsafe. A detonation code, not for a bomb, for the colony's entire underground reactor system. The leader of the resistance, Commander Elias Trent, sent one final message. Mars does not surrender. And then, the entire city erupted in fire. A self-destruct sequence designed to take the enemy with them. The shockwave ripped through the tunnels. The Zayrath forces were incinerated. Mars was lost, but humanity had made one thing clear. We would rather burn our own worlds than let them be taken. And the war was far from over. The galaxy watches in stunned silence. The news of Mars' fall spread like wildfire. Other galactic civilizations tuned into the war. For the first time, they took notice, because something was different. Other species had surrendered to the Zayrath. Others had knelt, obeyed, submitted. But humanity? Humanity did not break. And now, the Zayrath were starting to realize their mistake. Because Mars hadn't been a defeat. It had been a message, a promise. And Earth? Earth was still standing, waiting for its turn to strike back. The Earth stand, a battle no one expected. The war comes home. Mars had fallen. The colonies were gone. Humanity's fleets shattered. But Earth? Earth was still breathing. And when the Zayrath invasion fleet descended upon the homeworld, they expected one thing: surrender. Instead, they found hell waiting for them. The invasion begins, but Earth was ready. The Zayrath fleet arrived in full force. Hundreds of warships hovering over every major city. Troop carriers broke through the atmosphere, dropping millions of soldiers onto the surface. The skies burned with reentry flames. The ground shook with the impact of their landers. This was supposed to be the end, a final march through a broken world. But what they didn't know, Earth had never stopped preparing. A trap set for giants. The moment the Zayrath touched down, the war changed. In cities, in mountains, in vast deserts, the resistance activated. The invaders expected surrender. What they got was a massacre. Ambushes in the ruins of fallen skyscrapers. Explosives hidden beneath highways. EMP bursts frying their advanced technology. The first wave of Zayrath soldiers never made it out of their landing zones. Human snipers took them before they even saw the battlefield. The second wave was funneled into kill zones. The third wave never even landed. Because Earth's defenses, the ones they thought had been destroyed, they were still active and waiting. Urban warfare, the Zayrath's worst nightmare. The Zayrath were conquerors. They won battles with overwhelming force. Planetary bombardments. Massive ground armies. They had never fought like this before. Every alley, every rooftop, every building became a battlefield. Every civilian became a soldier. Every street was a war zone. They were fighting not just an army. They were fighting an entire species. And for the first time in their history, they started to lose. The Battle of New York, a city in flames. New York City was one of the first major targets. The Zayrath expected to take it in hours. Instead, it became a bloodbath. The moment their troop carriers landed, entire skyscrapers collapsed on top of them. Underground subway tunnels became battlefields. Civilians, once terrified refugees, became fighters. They used whatever they could. Molotovs, stolen weapons, hacked drones carrying explosives. And when the Zayrath regrouped, trying to push through the streets, the National Guard and resistance fighters hit them from all sides. One of their commanders, the warlord Naxal Kor himself, was gunned down on live broadcasts. The invincible war machine of a Zayrath had stalled. And it wasn't just New York. It was everywhere. The Battle of Shanghai, the Dragon Wakes. Shanghai became a nightmare for the invaders. They expected a quick conquest. Instead, they found entire districts turned into fortress zones. Cyber warfare disrupted their targeting systems. Drones swarmed their forces, cutting off supply lines. Zayrath's soldiers were trapped inside massive skyscrapers, then detonated from the ground. By day 3 of the invasion, Zayrath generals realized they had made a mistake. This wasn't a war. It was a slaughter. Theirs. A war of attrition, the will of humanity. The Zayrath were used to quick victories. Overwhelming force. Crushing opposition in days, not weeks. But Earth did not break. And the longer they fought, the more the Zayrath lost. Their war machines ran out of fuel. Their supply lines were cut. Their reinforcements never arrived. Because in orbit, the last surviving human warships fought like demons. Outnumbered, outgunned, but never outmatched. And in the streets, the bodies of Zayrath warriors piled up. They had come to conquer, but they had walked into a meat grinder. The moment the war changed, on day 7, something happened that no one expected. The Zayrath pulled back, not because they had won, but because they couldn't advance. Their generals hesitated, and that was all humanity needed, because the moment they slowed down, the counterattack began. And suddenly, the hunters became the hunted. The counterstrike begins. For the first time in the war, humanity stopped defending and started attacking. Guerrilla units struck deep behind enemy lines. Human fleets rallied, launching a desperate but devastating orbital assault. Cities once under siege fought back. And the Zayrath realized something horrifying. They had never been in control of this war. They had never had humanity beaten. They had only ever had humanity waiting. The first Zayrath retreat in history. By day 10, the impossible happened. A Zayrath commander, under orders to hold Earth at any cost, ordered a retreat. They had lost too many soldiers, too many ships, too much time. They needed to regroup. The once invincible Zayrath armada pulled back, and the rest of the galaxy? They watched in absolute shock, because the impossible had happened. Humanity had survived. The first full-scale Zayrath invasion had failed, and the war was far from over, because now it was humanity's turn to strike back. The cost of war, humanity's darkest hour. Victory came at a price. The Zayrath had retreated. Their mighty war fleet, once unstoppable, had been beaten back. For the first time in their history, they had lost an invasion. The galaxy watched in awe. Humanity had done what no one thought possible. But Earth was in ruins, and this war was far from over. The aftermath, a world in flames. The sky over Earth was still filled with smoke. Cities lay in ruin. Millions were dead. The infrastructure crippled. The economy shattered. Entire continents had gone dark. Some places were gone entirely. Paris, leveled by orbital bombardment. Moscow, buried under the wreckage of fallen Zayrath warships. New Delhi, poisoned by bioweapons the Zayrath had released before retreating. The war wasn't over, but it had already changed everything. The loss of leadership, governments crumble. The first Zayrath strike had wiped out Earth's leadership. The United Nations headquarters destroyed. The world's top generals dead. Presidents, prime ministers, chancellors gone in the first wave. There was no central command anymore. Only scattered military remnants. and an unbreakable human will to fight. What was left of Earth's leadership regrouped in underground bunkers. But it was no longer about nations, no longer about politics. Now, it was about survival, and what came next would decide everything. A fractured humanity, divided by the war. The war had united humanity at first, but now there were divisions. Some believed Earth should fight to the last breath, that humanity should launch a full counterattack, wipe out the Zayrath at any cost. Others wanted to negotiate, to find peace before another invasion came. And then there were the deserters, the ones who saw the writing on the wall, who believed humanity couldn't win. And some of them are willing to betray their own kind to survive. The betrayal, humanity's own turn against itself. As humanity scrambled to recover, something far worse happened. There were humans who had chosen to side with the Zayrath. People who saw no hope in fighting an empire that spanned 1,000 worlds. They called themselves the Collaborators, and they made their move. Military supply lines were sabotaged. Key resistance leaders were assassinated. Zayrath ships were given human-controlled landing zones, safe places to regroup. The worst part? No one knew who to trust anymore. The war had created heroes, but it had also created traitors. The blackout, Earth's communications cut off. Then the worst possible thing happened. One final Zayrath strike before retreating. They didn't bomb cities. They didn't send troops. Instead, they hit Earth's global communication network. Satellites? Blasted out of orbit. Underground fiber relays? Destroyed by infiltrators. Earth was cut off. No signals in. No signals out. For the first time in human history, Earth was alone, and no one knew if help was coming. The resistance takes command. A new kind of war begins. With world governments in disarray, the war fell to whoever was left. Old generals, young strategists, even civilians, people who had never seen a battlefield before this war. They had no choice. They became the new leadership, and, under their command, a new strategy was born. Humanity wouldn't fight like an empire. Humanity wouldn't fight like the Zayrath. Instead, they would fight like ghosts. Unseen, unpredictable, relentless. The new war, guerrilla warfare, begins. The next phase of the war wasn't fought in open battles. It was fought in the ruins, in the shadows. Zayrath supply convoys, ambushed and destroyed. Their commanders assassinated. Their weapon caches stolen. Humanity had no fleet left, no standing army. But they had something else. Their will. And the Zayrath didn't understand it, because they had never fought an enemy that refused to stay dead. The turning point, a message sent in blood. The Zayrath thought they had crushed humanity, that Earth was on its last legs. Then, something terrifying happened. One of their highest-ranking generals, stationed in a captured human city, was found dead. Not killed in battle, not in an airstrike, executed. And next to his body, a message, written in his own blood. This war isn't over. You should have finished the job. The Zayrath had miscalculated. They thought Earth had been broken. Instead, they had forged something new, something far more dangerous. A war where humanity had nothing left to lose. And in that kind of war, the real nightmare was just beginning. The turning point, the unseen weapon. The war no one saw coming. The Zayrath had left Earth in ruins. They had expected humanity to crumble. They had expected the war to be over. But instead, they had just forced humanity to evolve. Because survival wasn't enough anymore. This wasn't just about defending Earth. This was about taking the war to the enemy. And humanity had one last trick to play. A weapon the Zayrath never saw coming. Something impossible. The birth of a neural warfare initiative. Deep beneath the ruins of Earth, hidden in old black site bunkers, scientists worked in secret. They had spent years developing experimental technology. Technology that had never been tested in real combat. Now, they had nothing left to lose. The project was called the Neural Warfare Initiative. And its purpose? To turn human soldiers into something the Zayrath couldn't fight. Something beyond human. The first test subjects, volunteers for the impossible. The program needed pilots and soldiers. Not just elite fighters, but the best. Not everyone survived the process. The interface between human minds and machine warfare was unstable. Some soldiers burned out. Others lost themselves in the machine. But those who survived, they became something else. They became the Linkborn, the first warriors fully integrated with war machines. A pilot didn't just control a ship. They became it. A sniper didn't just fire a rifle. They saw through its scope as if it were their own eyes. And when they stepped onto the battlefield, the Zayrath didn't stand a chance. The first strike, a ghost fleet appears. The first battle of the Neural War happened in deep space. A Zayrath convoy was moving to a newly captured human colony. They had no reason to be afraid. There were no human fleets left. Humanity's ships had been wiped out, or so they thought. Then, out of nowhere, their scanners lit up. A dozen human warships. Ships that shouldn't exist. Because they were thought-controlled weapons, piloted by warriors who no longer needed controls. And in a flash, the first Zayrath fleet in history was wiped out by an enemy they couldn't predict. The unstoppable offensive begins. The Linkborn were just the beginning. With every passing day, more soldiers joined the program. More warriors became one with their weapons. Soon, humanity had an entire army of warfighters who could move and react faster than anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Zayrath tried to fight back, but every time they sent reinforcements, they were already outmaneuvered. Every time they set up defenses, they were breached before they knew what hit them. Humanity had gone from fighting for survival to fighting for total domination. The psychological war, the Zayrath fear for the first time. For the first time in their empire's history, the Zayrath were afraid. They had spent centuries crushing civilizations. But now, they were the ones being hunted. Their generals refused to sleep, fearing assassination. Their soldiers refused to land on human-controlled worlds. Their fleets began retreating before battles even started. Because no one wanted to face the Linkborn. They weren't just soldiers. They weren't just pilots. They were something beyond understanding. A force that couldn't be reasoned with. And as the war continued, something even worse happened. The galaxy began to take notice. The rest of the galaxy reacts. Other alien species had been watching the war from the sidelines. They had assumed humanity would fall. But now they saw the truth. Earth hadn't just survived. Earth had become the single most dangerous military force in the known universe. Some species begged to ally with humanity. Others? They started preparing their own defenses. Because now a new question arose. If humanity could wipe out the Zayrath, what was stopping them from conquering the rest of the galaxy? The turning point. A message to the Zayrath homeworld. As the war reached its deadliest stage, a message was sent. From Earth's last surviving war council to the Zayrath homeworld itself. A simple transmission. A warning. You want to break us. You want to make us kneel. But now you will learn what it means to fear humanity. For the first time in history, the Zayrath Emperor himself was forced to respond. And for the first time in history, the Zayrath considered surrender. Because now, they realized they were losing. And humanity? Humanity was just getting started. The counterattack retaking the colonies. The war shifts. Humanity goes on the offensive. For months, humanity had been on the defensive. Earth was in ruins. Mars was gone. Entire colonies had been wiped off the map. But now humanity was done running. Now it was our turn to strike back. The plan. A war fought in the shadows. The Zayrath still controlled dozens of human worlds. Fortified colonies. Captured space stations. Garrisons filled with battle-hardened Zayrath warriors. A direct assault was suicide. So humanity didn't attack like an empire. We attacked like hunters. Like predators. The war was no longer about firepower. It was about strategy. About turning every battlefield into a nightmare. And that was exactly what we did. The battle for Titan, the first strike. Titan was the largest remaining human colony under Zayrath control. They had fortified it for months. They expected a siege. They expected humanity to throw everything at them. What they didn't expect was an invisible war. The first Zayrath outpost on Titan went dark overnight. No alarms. No distress signals. Just silence. The next day, another garrison vanished. Then another. The Zayrath commanders panicked. They couldn't see the enemy. They couldn't predict the attacks. They only knew one thing. Something was hunting them. And then, the real attack began. The Ghost Fleet arrives. The Link-born warriors struck first. Silent, untraceable strike teams. Each pilot connected directly to their war machines. They didn't need orders. They didn't need communication. They fought as one mind. Zayrath ships were ripped apart before they could fire a single shot. Their fortress shields fell in minutes. Their command centers collapsed. Within 6 hours, the Zayrath lost control of Titan. Within 12, they had been wiped out completely. And just like that, humanity had its first victory. The message spreads, a fire across the stars. Titan wasn't the last. It was only the beginning. In the weeks that followed, humanity struck back again and again. Captured colonies were liberated. Zayrath strongholds burned. And then, something even more shocking happened. The Zayrath didn't just retreat. They ran. Entire fleets abandoned their posts. Their once mighty armies fled from battle. Because they had never fought an enemy like this. An enemy that didn't just fight to win, but fought to eradicate. And for the first time, the Zayrath realized they might not survive this war. The Galactic Rebellion. Other species rise up. The war had been a fight between two powers. The Zayrath Dominion and humanity. But now, the rest of the galaxy was watching. For centuries, the Zayrath had ruled through fear. They had conquered hundreds of worlds, subjugated entire civilizations. But humanity had exposed their weakness. They could be beaten, they could be broken, and suddenly, other species began rising up. The Zayrath were no longer just fighting humans. They were fighting rebellions across their entire empire. This war had just become something bigger. This wasn't just a human war anymore. This was a galactic uprising, and the Zayrath were losing control. The fall of the first Zayrath Empire world. It started with whispers, then a single spark. On the fringes of their empire, a Zayrath-controlled world fell. Not to human forces, but to their own enslaved population. The Zayrath tried to contain the rebellion. They failed. More worlds fell in days. The Zayrath's own soldiers began defecting. Their alliances shattered. And suddenly, the once mighty Zayrath Empire was in free fall. The ultimate goal, the heart of the empire. Humanity had fought to survive, then fought to win. Now, we were fighting for revenge. Because there was one final target. One place the Zayrath never imagined we would reach. Their homeworld, the throne of their empire. And humanity? We were going to take it. The Zayrath Emperor speaks, a desperate plea. As the war turned against them, the Zayrath Emperor himself sent a message. To Earth, to the Link-born, to the leaders of humanity. For the first time in Zayrath history, he begged for peace. A species that had never negotiated. A species that had never feared war. Now, they were on their knees, and humanity had a choice. In the war with a treaty, or in the Zayrath forever. The decision would change the fate of the galaxy. And the response? It will be delivered in fire. The Galactic Awakening. Other species joined the fight. A war that couldn't be contained. The Zayrath had ruled for centuries. Their empire had conquered, crushed, and controlled more worlds than anyone could count. But now, their empire was burning, and the fire had started with humanity. We had proven that they could be beaten, that they could be hunted, and the rest of the galaxy? They had been watching. The whisper that became a roar. It began with small rebellions. Zayrath-controlled worlds where enslaved species finally fought back. They saw humanity's victories. They saw Zayrath fleets retreating, and they realized the empire that had ruled them for so long was not invincible. So they rose, in secret. At first, it was whispers in the dark. Then, it was a revolution. The Andari resistance, the first allies. The Andari were the first to step forward. A species long subjugated by the Zayrath. For centuries, they had been forced to build warships for the Empire. Now, they were stealing those same warships, turning the tools of their oppression into weapons of war. And when they made contact with humanity, the first words spoken were simple. Teach us how to fight. The coalition forms, a united rebellion. Humanity had once stood alone. The war had been ours to fight. But now we had allies. The Andari brought ships. The Morvith, a warrior race forced into servitude, brought soldiers. The Zelnath, a species of tactical geniuses, brought strategy. And in the center of it all, humanity, the ones who had lit the fire, the ones who had proven the impossible. For the first time in history, the galaxy had a true resistance. And the Zerath? They were losing control. The betrayal within, the last desperate move. The Zerath were desperate. They had lost entire fleets. Entire civilizations were slipping away. They needed to strike back, but they couldn't fight a war on all fronts. So instead, they made a deal. They reached out to the only species in the galaxy with the power to stop the rebellion. A species so ancient, so powerful, that even the Zerath had feared them. They called them the Silent Ones. No one knew their true name. No one knew their origins. But when they joined the war, everything changed. The Silent Ones entered the war. The Silent Ones did not speak. They did not negotiate. They did not take prisoners. They had watched from the shadows for millennia. And now, they had chosen a side, not because they supported the Zerath, but because they saw humanity as a greater threat. And so, the true war began, not just against the Zerath, but against something older, something worse, something that had waited for a reason to destroy us. And we had just given them one. The final choice, fight or fall. The rebellion had been winning. Humanity had been crushing the Zerath. But now we faced something else. The Silent Ones were beyond anything we had fought before. Their ships didn't fire weapons. They tore apart reality itself. Their soldiers didn't bleed. They were made of something we didn't understand. This wasn't just a war anymore. This was an extinction event. And the only way to stop it was to end the war before they could take control. The final target, the Zerath homeworld. The war had been raging across the stars. But now we had one chance. One final shot to end this. If we took out the Zerath homeworld, if we killed their emperor, then their empire would collapse completely. And with no Zerath left to control, the Silent Ones would have no reason to stay. This was it. The last stand. The final battle. And humanity? We were ready. The Zerath's revenge. They bring their ultimate weapon. The final stand of a dying empire. The Zerath were cornered. Their fleets were in shambles. Their empire was fracturing. World after world slipped from their grasp. They had spent centuries as conquerors. But now, they were the ones being hunted. And like any dying beast, they lashed out with everything they had left. The ultimate weapon, a doomsday forgotten. Deep within the Zerath homeworld, beneath layers of black stone and war fortresses, something slept. A weapon so old, so powerful, that even the Zerath had feared to use it. A relic from a time before recorded history. It had been built not by the Zerath, not by any species still alive today, but by something long dead, something that had been erased from existence. A species that had fought the Silent Ones and lost. The weapon had been sealed away for a reason. But now, the Zerath had no choice, because if they were going to fall, they would take humanity with them. The first activation, the stars go dark. The first sign came in the outer systems. Planets vanished, not destroyed, not bombed, just gone, like they had never existed at all. Entire star systems collapsed into void. Something was coming, something humanity wasn't ready for. And for the first time in the war, even the Silent Ones hesitated. The Great Devourer awakens. The weapon was called the Great Devourer, a planet-sized construct built to erase entire civilizations. It didn't fire missiles. It didn't burn cities. It unmade reality itself. And now, it had been activated. A weapon so vast, so beyond comprehension, that even humanity's greatest warships seemed like insects before it. The Great Devourer began to move. And its target? Earth. The impossible battle, fighting a living apocalypse. Humanity had fought impossible wars before. We had faced unbeatable enemies. But this was different. The Great Devourer was not just a weapon. It was a force of nature, a thing designed to end empires. And we had one chance, one final shot to stop it, or everything we had fought for would be erased. The Silent Ones speak, a final warning. The Silent Ones had never spoken to humanity. Not once. But as the Great Devourer moved toward Earth, they sent a single message. A warning. Flee. Humanity had never backed down from a fight. And we weren't about to start now. The Battle of the Devourer, the last war, begins. The greatest fleet humanity had ever assembled met the Great Devourer head-on. Every remaining warship, every link-born pilot, every allied species that had joined the rebellion. This was it. The final war. Humanity didn't just fight. We threw everything we had. Planet killer weapons. Neural-linked squadrons firing as one. The Silent Ones watched, waiting to see if humanity could do what no one else had. If we could kill a god. The final strategy, a suicide mission. There was only one way to win. The Great Devourer's core had to be destroyed. From the inside, a direct attack wouldn't work. But one ship could get through. A single small strike team, led by the best of the Linkborn. A mission with no return. A chance to save humanity. Or end with it. The infiltration, a race against time. A small human strike team entered the Great Devourer. Inside, it was not metal. It was something else. Something alive. A machine made of ancient horrors. Memories of a war so old, no records remained. The Silent Ones had fought this thing before, and they had failed. But humanity? We had one advantage. We didn't fear impossible odds. We became them. The final blow, humanity's last stand. The team reached the core, a pulsing, unholy mass of energy. It couldn't be shut down. It couldn't be disarmed. It could only be destroyed. And that meant one thing. A detonation from the inside. The last message came from the lead pilot. His voice steady, unshaken. You wanted us erased. But we do not fade. We do not surrender. We do not kneel. If we go, we're taking you with us. The transmission cut out. And then, the Great Devourer exploded. An impossible burst of energy. A shockwave that tore through space. And just like that, the weapon of gods was dead. And the Zerath? They had lost. The aftermath. A universe changed forever. The Zerath Empire was gone. Their fleets shattered. Their homeworld burned. The Silent Ones vanished. And humanity? Humanity had survived. We had fought a war that should have ended us. And we had won. But the galaxy would never be the same. Because now they all knew the truth. The final message. A transmission was sent to every species in the known galaxy. From Earth. From the last surviving war leaders. A message not of conquest. Not of warning. But of fact. We were supposed to die. But we didn't. We were supposed to surrender. But we didn't. You wanted to see what humanity was capable of? Now you know. The war was over. But humanity was just getting started. The battle for Earth. The last stand. The final target. Humanity's home. The Great Devourer was destroyed. The Zerath were broken. Their empire lay in ruins. But they weren't finished. Not yet. Because if they couldn't win the war, they would at least take humanity's home with them. Earth was still standing. And the Zerath intended to erase it. This was no longer a war of conquest. It was vengeance. Their last fleet, the remnants of their empire, set course for Earth. And humanity? We had one final battle left to fight. The darkest hour, the fleet arrives. They came in waves. What was left of their armada? Dozens of supercarriers. Thousands of warships. An invasion force meant to wipe out our species. They weren't holding back. They weren't offering surrender. This was extermination. But we were ready. Because Earth was no longer just a planet. It was a fortress. The defenders, the last line of humanity. The war had forged something new. What was left of our military? What was left of our resistance fighters? And the survivors of a dozen fallen worlds. All of them stood together. Soldiers, civilians, engineers who had turned factories into weapons, miners who had turned tunnels into traps, cyber warriors who had turned the enemy's technology against them. Earth's defenses were no longer broken. They were stronger than ever. And when the Zerath arrived, we made them pay for every inch. The battle begins. A war in the skies. The fight started in orbit. Humanity's last warships, what little remained, held the line. Against a force 10 times their size. A fleet that should have crushed them. But the Zerath had underestimated us before. And they were about to do it again. because our pilots weren't just pilots anymore. They were link-born. And when the Zayrath fleet opened fire, we didn't dodge. We didn't run. We struck first. The orbital war, the fleet's last stand. The sky became fire. Warships exploded in bursts of energy. Missiles rained down like meteor storms. The battle was chaos. Humanity's fleet moved in ways no one could predict. Link-born pilots controlled their ships with their minds, dodging fire before it was even launched, firing shots before the enemy could react. But for every Zayrath ship we destroyed, we lost 3 of our own. Humanity was outnumbered, outgunned. And then, the ground war began. The invasion of Earth, fire and steel. The Zayrath landed in force. Dropships ripped through the atmosphere. Thousands of warriors touched down in every major city. It was chaos, but Earth had been preparing. Cities had been turned into kill zones, tunnels into ambush points, and every street, it became a battleground. The final stand in the streets of Earth. They thought they would break us, that our world would fall in days. But they had forgotten. We weren't just fighting for victory. We were fighting for survival. And that meant there was no surrender, no retreat, only death or victory. The moment that changed everything. For 7 days, the battle raged. Neither side gave an inch. But on the 8th day, everything changed, because a single Zayrath warlord, one of their highest commanders, was captured. And he said something that stunned the entire galaxy. Your species was never supposed to exist. For the first time, the Zayrath spoke the truth. This war, it wasn't just about conquest. It was about something far older. And humanity had just uncovered the greatest secret in the universe. The secret of the war, the final truth. The Zayrath hadn't attacked us by accident. They hadn't conquered Earth for resources. They had done it to erase something. Something they had been ordered to destroy. Something they had feared. And that something was us. Humanity wasn't just another species. We were something more. Something the ancient empires had tried to erase. Something that had been kept hidden. And now we were awakening, and the Zayrath had failed to stop it. The final push, humanity strikes back. The truth changed everything. The battle had been about survival. Now, it was about revenge. The last Zayrath warlord fell. The last Zayrath warship was destroyed. The final battle ended. And Earth stood victorious, not just as a survivor, but as the beginning of something new. The galaxy reacts, fear and awe. Every species watched. Some saw hope. Some saw danger. But they all saw the same thing. Humanity had won, not just against the Zayrath, not just against an empire, but against the fate that had been written for us. We were supposed to die. We were supposed to kneel. Instead, we had rewritten history. And now, the galaxy would never be the same. The final message, a warning to the stars. As the last Zayrath signal faded, a transmission was sent. Not just to our allies, not just to our enemies, but to every species in the universe. From Earth, from humanity, a message that would never be forgotten. You tried to erase us. You failed. We are humanity. We do not bow. We do not surrender. And if you ever come for us again, we will end you. The war was over, but humanity's story was just beginning. The aftermath, a galaxy forever changed. The war was over. But the story wasn't. The Zayrath Dominion had fallen. Their fleets destroyed. Their armies wiped out. Their homeworld left in ruin. Humanity had done the impossible. We had won. But victory came at cost. The war had changed us. And now, the real question remained. What we become? Earth. A world scarred but unbroken. The battle for Earth had been our greatest test. We had lost entire continents. Cities burned. Billions were dead. The world we had fought for was in ruins. But Earth endured. Rebuilding would take decades. But for the first time in history, we weren't just rebuilding for ourselves. We were rebuilding for something bigger, for a future beyond Earth. Because now, humanity was not alone. The rise of the human-led coalition. Before the war, the galaxy had seen us as a minor species. Insignificant. Now, we were the ones they looked to for leadership, because we had done what no one else had. We had shattered an empire. We had defeated the undefeatable. And now, the old balance of power was gone. Other species, once enslaved by the Zerath, rallied to humanity's banner. The Andari, the Morvath, the Zelnath, the ones who had fought beside us, and the ones who had feared to join the war but now wanted our protection. For the first time in history, a new power rose. Not an empire, not a dictatorship, a coalition, one built on a single truth. Never again, never again would a species be left to stand alone. Never again would tyranny go unchallenged. Never again would humanity allow the galaxy to fall into darkness. We were no longer just another species. We were something else, a force that would reshape the stars. The fate of the Silent Ones, the unknown threat. But there was one mystery left unanswered. The Silent Ones had vanished. The ancient beings that had watched from the shadows, that had once fought the great devourer, that had seen humanity rise and chosen to let it happen. Why? Why had they not interfered? Why had they not destroyed us when they had the chance? And then a message was found, not from humans, not from the Zerath, but from something older. A single transmission left behind by the Silent Ones. It said only one thing. You were not meant to exist, yet you survived. The galaxy is watching. So are we. A warning? A threat? Or something worse? No one knew, but one thing was clear. The Silent Ones weren't finished with us, and humanity's greatest battle might still lie ahead. The legend of humanity spreads. Across the galaxy, our name became legend. Some feared us. Some worshipped us. Others whispered that we were something unnatural, a species that should have never survived, a species that had rewritten destiny itself, because we had done more than just win a war. We had changed the course of history. And now, every empire, every species, every civilization had a choice: to stand with us or to prepare for war. Because one truth had been made clear: humanity does not kneel. Humanity does not surrender. And if they ever tried to erase us again, we would burn the stars to the ground. The final transmission, a promise to the future. From the ruins of Earth, a new message was sent. Not just to our allies, not just to our enemies, but to everyone. A message carved into the fabric of history. A message that would echo for generations. It was simple. It was clear. It was the final truth of the war. We are humanity. We were supposed to fall. We were supposed to fade. But we are still here. And now, the stars belong to us. The end, or just the beginning. The war was over. But the future? That was ours to decide. And somewhere in the dark corners of the universe, something watched, waiting, because this was only the first war. And humanity? We were just getting started.